Hi, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Esoterics Today with Amber and Satara. I am Amber Chamberlain, the Suburban Lightworker, and I have with me, as always, our fantastic, highly resonant voiced, beautiful Satara Jules Lightbringer. Don't you just love how I introduce you?
Yeah, I do.
I know.
It's heartwarming.
You should always be a star. Our topic today is all about the omniverse. What a huge topic. But we're going to break this omniverse and omnipresence, really omnipresence. We're going to break it down into some components that can feel relatable. Something that we do on this show is talk extremely deeply esoteric themes, but we try to bring them through to our everyday lives and our everyday spiritual practices. And we try to pick topics that we know our larger tribe um, does more or less well with, depending. And sometimes we're just needing prompts to remember and to recall. So Satara in particular brought this one to my attention, so we're going to walk through it. So by way of introduction of the topic of omnipresence, Satara, why are we even, let me start this way. Why are we bringing up the topic of omnipresence, and what the hell is it?
Okay, well, we're bringing up the topic because it seems to be something that people are starting to have more realizations about, but it seems to be in like small pockets at the moment, that sort of knowledge is being brought back forward. So I wanted to kind of start talking about it a little bit more so that people can start to be triggered by it to have their own remembrances. Because the quicker we get all of the tribe onto the same page, or at least similar pages, you know, if we're in the same kind of chapter, albeit at the beginning, middle, or end, we are moving forward in a different way. So this is where I was kind of coming from with it. Plus, we've touched on it a little bit in some of our other shows. You know, we've spoken about the fact that we are everything. So this is just kind of you know, going to take it down to a slightly different, perhaps, level for people to see it in more detail, should we say.
Well, and I agree with you. And for those of you who tune into this show, either on YouTube or on SoundCloud podcast, what you know is we try to really bring these themes around to a fundamental understanding. We know that our kind, the larger community, understands that we are at a point of inflection, should we say, on Gaia today. Or sometimes I like to think we are riding as fleas to an elephant on the back of Gaia as she makes this beautiful transition into her next expression, into the harmonic. People, Satara, I think it's helpful to refer to the terms in these moments that are kind of ubiquitous, and we can maybe call them out. And you shape me up on some that you know. So I'm going to we see it called the shift. We hear it called ascension. We hear it called new earth. We hear it called, after the solar flash. Or the flash. Is there any other word you're hearing and seeing broadly tossed about?
I think you've kind of just about sort of covered it. You know, to me, every single one of those things is just a different layer of separation. Because really, everything is already present here. Every single dimension is here. It just depends on where we are as individuals, to what part of it we're more dominantly plugged into. Because we're multidimensional beings anyhow, so we're moving all the way through from some first dimension expressions here, all the way up to 12th dimension expressions here. You know, so, you know, where are we within that, and where is the planet within it? Of course, everything is within everything within it.
And for those of you listening to Satara about that, yes, my sister can, not only is there enormous accuracy, but there's also a point of intense frustration sometimes for humans as we have this discussion, because we still are dealing with a third dimensional transfiguring through to the fourth, and we're really mostly to a fourth density story as humans in our cellular expression or energy body expression now. Congratulations, maybe I should say congratulations. It's really, it's not some kind of achievement really as much as just sort of a natural unfoldment, but we like to congratulate ourselves because we're humans and we have these nervous systems that say something is good, something is less good, something is better, something is bad. We have an up and a down, higher is better, lower is worse, but I don't know, maybe when so when you hear Satara express herself from that viewpoint, really not trying to be sort of gamey or canny, but really saying the truth of all that is. From the first point in the first dimension, and then from the mineral world. Oh, I'm holding on to one now that likes to be represented. From the mineral world to the algae world, to the mosses, all the way to our expression and beyond, you're really referencing it's all now. And I appreciate the reminder of that, because, and what Satara said that was so key also is that the more of us, as our thought forms somewhat align, vibe, some of you would call it. I always see it as we tap into the organic matrix around the planet and the natural grid of the planet. The more of us that are on that patterning together, thoughts create form. That's the nature of co-creation. It is the nature of creation and the sacred geometry that builds all of it. So Tara, am I in the zone?
Yeah, you're totally in the zone. That's exactly where I'm kind of coming from with it. When we're on the same page, we can create miracles. We can create miracles as individuals, but when we come together as a collective, that's when it's instantaneous.
Well, and that is what headed solidly fourth density to fifth and beyond, what we call in the third to the fourth, the story of miracles or instant co-creation and creation. We're like, wow, we've typically understood those only reserved for the saints or for the Christs among us, or the energies of the Muhammad or the Buddha, when we realize that we are them, and that is what happens as we reach certain portions of the harmonic and the density. That's why we tell these stories. That's why Satara and I talk to each other about this. First of all, it's always beautiful to have someone to discuss this with at this level. But second of all, as teachers, to turn this out to you for your own consideration and sharing with your peers, because that is how it's done. That's how the Great Awakening, there's another phrase that I left out. Yeah, the Great Awakening. We call it everything because we have to give it name. We have to have nomenclature in the human existence, because that's how our brains and our nervous systems all work. So taking it a little further, let's just be simple about this, Satara. Why is the construct of omnipresence? I am you, you are me, I am here, I am everywhere. I am the rock, I am the guy in the street, I'm the person who's homeless on the corner, I am the Queen of England, I am Saint Germain. And I am Pleiadian, I am Syrian, I am all that is. Oh, there's a word for you. There's a phrase that's triggering. Why is that an important component to the spiritual practitioner who's already in it?
I think it's important because it seems to be that so many practices here have been designed to create the separation game, to its infinite point. You know, how many people are like, oh, I can't do that, or I don't resonate with that, when actually it is them. And that can be almost anything across the globe. We look at the way that the earth is perceived today by different sections of the population. You know, we are going to look at people from the very poorest who are lucky to even have water to drink, to the richest that just can have whatever they want. There's no sort of separation. And what the interesting thing is that that is all of us. And so many people will try to shy away from certain personality types within this planet, let alone the whole of the universe, where without the reasoning that actually that is just an aspect of them. That is a part of the whole, and we are the whole.
Well, these are the bases for racism, sexism, put any ism, and
Yeah.
this is the basis for that that's pervasive in the population.
Very
So,
much so. And when we have that deep knowing that that person that we might not particularly like over there is still us, we can treat that person, situation, whole thing that's going on to a different level, because we then have total compassion for it, even if we don't understand it. And that is really a key thing that we need here, is to literally be able to love everything here, regardless of what it's playing out, knowing that it is just a bit of us.
So what that message is really saying is this alone, if it is the only thing we took away from our spiritual practice, and we found a way in every moment to know that you are me. And I do this with my husband, I do it with my child, and then I'll forget that I need to do that. This alone would, in an instant, if say 30% of the human population all at one time applied that, the polarity on the planet, the toroidal spin for those of my quantum sisters and brothers, in an instant.
Yeah.
We would jump, we would leap in an instant, because the thought form created all at once. See, that's part of the story of what's going on here. So it's such an important piece to be talking about. I just got the hit of good for you guys. That's exactly right. Anytime I come through with the light language, folks, what it is, it's almost like it's sound energy that works through me to inform something. And if you're hearing it from this conversation or seeing it, you're getting an extra push to get this alignment. It sort of sounds of alignment.
Very much so. One thing I would like to touch on as well, when we talk about omnipresence, at the moment we've only really spoken about other people being a part of this, whereas actually it is literally everything that is a part of this. So the clock behind me is me. The painting on Amber's wall is me. Everything is me. Everything that has been created, everything that we can see, touch, taste, and feel is us.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I left that out of sort of a summation, and I'm glad you brought it back around, because one of the first places I started when I started teaching Satara was teaching a construct called dialing in and dialing out. Everything having a location code, everything having a mathematical build. I mean, I am very much your Sirius B sister. And I see things, in other words, I taught the construct that everything that we're looking at, we are actually holding in our hologram, we're holding it in our matrix. And because everything vibrates and everything is constructed, and we did the constructing. we're incredibly talented beings. We have just been highly programmed purposefully to not recall that. I have at least one.
Yeah, can you imagine what this place would look like if I could actually go and design it?
And
it
so,
would be crystalline.
I can see it would all be moving and it would all be exquisitely beautiful. You know, I might be on the inside of a tree with a bunch of moss. I'm into I have this thing, yeah, I mentioned moss earlier. So, and I know that we're stretching you right now to help you kind of feel into that. But everything has molecular structure. Everything is a manifestation condition in your matrix. That is why I am you and you are me. We have, you know, I've said this on other videos. I had a boyfriend that used to complain, "Hey Amber, it just seems like this is your life and I'm just passing through it." Oh, wiser words were never said in the form of a complaint, no less. So
just made sure that he was passing through, yeah.
Well, absolutely. Although that one did get stuck. And I actually, glad you brought that up, because how many years later, just this year, after so many years, found this individual literally popped back up, literally, and have had to do some of that tortal spin, twisting out of frequency we were talking about before the show.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
Yeah, let's just change a few timelines and let's just hop away from them.
That's okay. And I think that's another good show topic as we get into 2020 is some of the mechanical behaviors.
Yeah.
You have a lot of tools in your tool bag that I think that, and I certainly do too, that I think that people would appreciate hearing about so they could go out and either sort of emulate some of that for themselves until they find their own methods. Because you really are your own masters, everybody, but we can certainly give you some tips and tricks that we know we've experienced that have been beneficial to our signatures. But everything, all the free energy tools, and that's what we're talking about, that are available, all have your own signature capability to them. You're going to do them all in your way. So let's see, 1, 2, which is different than how we're taught from all the religious, and even some of the spiritual perspectives have relied too heavily on, if you will do these 5 things, if you will do these 3 things and do them every day for 5 times and spin around and then up, down, and then if you will clap your hands, there's been a little too much recipe making in our, but I get it. We're humans. We like things in recipes. We like to see.
Right, yeah. I don't like the recipe. I like to think, oh, right, that's the end. That's the end thing I've got there. Okay, I'm going to manifest the end thing, knowing that I don't need to from here to there, because once I'm there, I'm there.
And it's hard just said a mouthful right there, but I'm going to have to unpack it later.
Lazy light worker.
Light worker.
I've got it.
All right, so we're going to some other, because I've got some questions here that I'm taking us through. So I said to myself, you know, why is omnipresence something we need to discuss here in the 3rd, really, as we've transited to the 4th and beyond story? Why? Again, I'm going back to the why. What is it? You said it.
Yeah. You know, for me, it's just that deeper level of understanding and compassion. That is the here. Yes, I know there's many, many facets to it. But ultimately, if everything is one, we need to have respect for everything, because that is us. And ultimately, we need to have full respect and love for ourselves, which means we have to have respect and love for everything, regardless of whether we're like, not sure about that. If we're looking at across like the globe at all sorts of different, you know, you name it, it's been manifested here. The stuff we can, oh yeah, okay, not my cup of tea, but that's fine. As long as we can still love and respect that, that is one of the great challenges we have here as a human.
Okay.
Because there are things here designed to make us knee-jerk against them. So one of the greatest gifts is to move.
beautiful segue, because that's where I wanted to really restate that heavily, because I wanted to ask us, well, why, when did it happen, Satara, that we forgot omnipresence? So first of all, answer that for me. When did the human species forget omnipresence?
The human species forgot the omnipresence from as soon as they hit this planet in density and reality.
When? Because you had a little blip.
All right, as soon as we were created for this density and reality, we've forgotten it. That separation was pretty much immediate. Some people have had the odd, like, insight, should we say. We look through the ages of the different seers, oracles, etc. We're still tapping into aspects, but the omnipresent aspect was forgotten literally when Atlantis was here. The first humans, the Adam Cadmons that came to Atlantis, the first human of the species, were already created in separation to be able to play the separation game from the word go.
Thank you. I knew you would answer that perfectly. So the fact that we were created to play the separation game means that there are some important reasons for that. That there, why would you say, are we exploring separation, knowing that we know otherwise, in our DNA, so to speak, and in our cellular strength, in our cellular format, and in our energy body, we know. Why was it important that we forgot?
We have had to forget to be able to remember. It really is.
People hate that. People hate that.
I know, but that is exactly where the crux of the matter is. It's so that we can remember. The fact that we are everything means that intelligence is in every expression here. Even a brass has intelligence.
You keep breaking it up, and you just, I know, like, make it.
Sorry.
I want people to hear your words.
Yeah, okay. Right, where were we? I was just saying that everything here is an intelligence because everything is one. This was created as a holographic reality to be able to explore every possibility and every nuance of possibility that is possible, which is why anything and everything in this reality.
And what is important about all that information? Where does it go, Satara? And what's important about all that information?
That information is just really talking about expansion and growth of the one.
Well, so, okay.
I was going to say information is stored on a very large hard drive that we know as the greater consciousness.
Right.
Just to, finish off the question, really. Because if you think of this reality in terms of a computer simulation,
Which I do.
that is pretty much where we're at. Yes, we have the programming on such a deep level that we have 5 senses, and that's, if you start to look around the world at some of these AI beings that are being created, they're kind of getting some of these senses online with the AI here, which is just a reminder, really, that we're just a different version of that.
Well, I'm so glad you introduced the constructs of the AI viewpoint and understanding the hard drive construct. Remember, for you all watching and listening, we are giving clues as to how the consciousness community, as well as the quantum physics and quantum mechanical community, and the blends all in between, really conceptualize what is life. And one of the things I did very early in my life, I caught on to the construct Satara, because here's another way of looking at that. I caught on to chaos theory, and I've mentioned it a couple of times. I caught on to the construct of chaos theory, and how when you look very closely at the mathematical designs of chaos, you see repeating pattern, which really
Yes.
is fractal story. And in mathematics, those are called fractals, frankly. But what it taught me visually, and I'm an artist too, as many, many really old souls, we're everything, right? And we know we have access to all kinds of expression in this life. And when I saw that visual patterning, I could see the math underneath it, and I could see that, oh, I was just one aspect of all that is, and I am recording information of my interplay this lifetime with all that is, my take on it, my soul signature expression of it and experience with the play, and that information is recorded. Now, bring that information to, call it by name, all the names that we will hear where that information is stored, Satara.
Yeah, the way that you've brought that expression to that way, because we are literally all recording our own expressions to go into the mainframe to be able to look at the archetypical patterns within it.
Well, like thumb drives.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's
Where does the
in. Sorry.
I'm sorry, but I think what I wanted to point out, to bring those and the folks who listen to this into some common way of discussing that body of data, that body of information. We tend to talk about the Akash. Is this relatable? Isn't this a construct that we can hold? And what's beyond
Very
it?
much so. I mean, the Akashic records and the greater consciousness library, it's the same place. Everything, it's just mainframe, basically. And it will depend on who we are and where we are to what we've termed it. But it's our drive.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to, just like I pulled the thread about all the different names for the changes during of the harmonic, and where we are planetarily and so forth, and and how to conceptualize. I think it's helpful to people who listen and who check in on this to say, oh yeah, I heard of it like that, and then pull it into that. This is what we're talking about. I think Satara and I try to be, I don't know, I think the way that we've moved it out of just a purely spiritual language and to a more what we would call quantum language, which is why you're going to hear the constructs of matrix, and you're going to hear mainframe, and you're going to hear the relationship to what would be constructed, because more humans now know about what is a computer system.
Yeah, very, very much so. And it just makes perfect sense to be able to, look at it in that way, because that is such an easy logic to be able to look at.
Right.
At the software, we look at the hardware. We understand that now.
It's a much better, right. And we more holistically have that. Say like 20 years ago, we couldn't have had a wide discussion about it, and more people understand what we're talking about. I mean, a lot has changed recently.
Yeah, very much so. We would have struggled to have found something that people could relate to that was normal within everybody's everyday life.
Yeah, and look how far we've come, everybody, which is really, really beautiful.
Even it's like, if we look at like early 2012, we couldn't have this conversation until we actually had that convergence. That convergence was huge.
It was so huge. See, my ability to synthesize. Two things happened, three. One was an explosion of what is galactic. Two, because I had no interest in any of that. Two was my synthesizing capability. And 3 was exposure to an entirely set of new, well, I should say 2, exposure to a set of entirely new constructs. And then the 3, the rapid ability to synthesize them and bring them back around to what I did know, which was considerable, even at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. And that's interesting. What you've just said then is going galactic. And going galactic aspect is going deeper into the omnipresence to have an understanding that it isn't just this planet that's all us, it's everything. Solar system, nebulas, comets, everything, all the planets, stars, moons, suns, debris, everything.
And look how delighted C is when she says that.
I know. If it twinkles, I like it.
I'm a cosmic magpie. Give me a shiny object and I'm on it.
Totally.
Yeah. I'm a metals girl. My metals are my medium. By the way, I'm letting my natural silver and I'm going into my natural hair color. When I saw after the hairdresser and I looked, I was like, this is marvelous. All I've ever wanted was silver hair that shined. I mean, because I feel like I remember myself. I'm like, look at me. It's just, it's not, but it lights us up and makes us seem like kooks. But it's fabulous. We know what this is. You can really kind of see it in our energy. But listen, I think I want to make clear then, let's pivot slightly for those of us who have a galactic viewpoint since we've moved into that area. Mm-hmm. And yes, 2012, and then surely then by the 2016 trigger, we had a 2016 hot bang up. And if you weren't relating to yourself before with regard to planetary dimensional expansion and having dreams and having remembrances and whispers and lights, if you weren't having them before 2016, you are now. And those of you who watch this and take this in have your own stories around all that. You're listening to peers and friends who are starting to say, hey, they're starting to whisper to you, I know you're into this stuff. Here's what's happening to me. Because that's how it's done, one person.
Yeah.
So let's move into that. So Satara, you're not as prone as I am to be plain about the benefits to the separation game. There is an energetic benefit, not to us as humans, but to various expressions of other planetary systems and beings and constructs. I'm a pretty big, my perspective is this is a grand experiment.
Yes. It has always been called on other planets that this is the great experiment, is the actual wording for it. The great experiment.
What is it, C?
Because we can basically do pretty much whatever we want to do, because of the holographic nature of the reality means that if we ever go too far in any one direction, it's only a computer program and a few buttons to click it back up and reverse it and get it all going again.
And has there been some benefit to, because now we're going to shift into pain and suffering, because people, one of the things that this community gets slammed hard for is being all unicorns, rainbows, and butterflies.
Oh, yeah.
And we get crucified. There's another trigger word for you. We get crucified for it, and we're actually not taken very seriously, or, oh, that's all mystical crap. That's all about nirvana and utopian thinking. Oh, my friends, then we must be conversant in what is beneficial about suffering, why it's here, why we choose it. And I think that gets into, I can talk at large about service to other souls, service to self, the energy drain that goes on around suffering and how
Mhm.
beneficial that is to certain groups that are interested in seeing that, experiencing that, and thriving on
Mhm.
that. We do put off a lot of energy around that. So, Satara, what would you, it's not sort of your natural conversation. It's not the one that you would seem to prefer to have. But
Mhm.
I'm wondering if you could, because I think there's a lot of judgment when we talk about if we're willing to look at the shadow aspect and
Mhm.
its holistic effects, not just its independent effects on the individual, but it is if a thought form that is lifted and lofty comes together and then co-creates, what does a suffering thought form that's pervasive that we have like on our planet, what does it create?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we talk an awful lot about the different programs of like lack and fear, main ones here that are of a lower vibrational sort of construct. But we asked that all constructs were here and readily available for people to be able to dip in and out of them at will to whatever level they wanted to go into to experience it. Because if you think that on other realities that we have our fractal aspects on, so we are in effect experiencing as well, most of those have nothing like lack of anything. So we don't lack for anything. We don't necessarily even need to eat. We can just exist without the likes of like food, drink, clothes, all the things that are necessary here, we don't necessarily need in other realities. So we have drilled it down to be really basic here on a lot of levels to start to understand how to care for the suits that we're given. We have to have basic shelter. We have to have warmth. We have to have water. We have to have food just to be different. Because it's like, oh yeah, what a great idea that you have to eat that. Oh yeah, and what's it do? Oh, okay, it does that. Does it? Okay, yeah, we'll have that. It's pretty much what we've done.
So what you're talking about is sort of a change in energetic polarity. And we talk about Atlantis and then some choices that were made, and enough beings, people made them together to actually reverse the polarity to create
Yes,
a condition that is the third dimension, that we have that such black and white contrast.
very much so.
Now we're in the position to explore that contrast of shadow and light,
Yeah,
and to nurture the light while comforting the shadow.
very
Uh,
much so. I mean, the name of the game here is to actually walk that middle grey line. That is what we're trying to do, so that we're not overtly light, we're not overtly dark, we're sat in the middle, experience all of it. Yeah, that looks great, which is why we're accused of being fluffy and burping and farting rainbows and unicorns. Do you like that? But you know where I'm coming from. This is why we get accused of that, because we've passed through the dark stuff, we've worked through the light stuff, we've worked through this all good versus evil stuff because we realize it's all one. So how can it be? It is just our thought process that is giving us those overt polarities. Once we start to see it as a whole, it can be nothing but grey.
and I think I want to point out too that the our mother planet that we live on and love, she is doing the same.
Yeah.
We're on the same trajectory and experience that she is. We tend to have an, I like to bring that up about now because sometimes in our polarity within, we like to judge ourselves harshly that we're having this experience. My karmic pattern, I must have done something wrong in the, like I said, previous life, or I must have been a real loser because look, I'm here in 3D. What a cesspool. I was just, I called it a shithole yesterday. Listen, you know why? Not even us who understand all of this lose it. We're having the same
Yeah.
3D experience that into that fourth density moment. that the planet herself is having. She has explored victimhood. We've been exploring victimhood right beside her. There is nothing that she's not exploring. Damage, victimhood, war, torture, sexism, racism, the haves, the have-nots. I have no water, you have plenty. Um, I have no money, you have it all. We're exploring this all tout ensemble.
Yeah,
And
totally. Because
yeah,
she is us.
because she is us, back to the omnipresence. And let's move into, because I think at this time would be a beautiful time to move into special applications for real life problems. Because we always try to, in these conversations, listen, we're two middle-aged ladies, one in Europe, one American. We live, these middle-class lives or what have you. You know, we're not sitting on the mountaintop chanting all day. You're not either. As soon as I get done here, I have to pick
What a
myself.
pity.
Don't get me started. Because that sends me on a downward spiral of complete irritation. Have to do this. I'm like, oh God. Okay, so we're just the same as you. So talk to me, Sitara, about about the role of forgiveness. And we're from the story of omnipresence. What is the role of forgiveness in sort of our everyday lives?
Forgiveness is very much just a different vibrational frequency again. But it's one that is very useful for the human vessel because it helps to calm the nervous system and it helps to just chill the body out to a different level. One of the teachings that I do is Ho'oponopono, which is the Hawaiian art of forgiveness. And it's forgiveness of self and others in the Hawaiian way of looking at it. Well, as all is now, it's just other aspects of me that I'm forgiving for me. So I really like that because it's basically saying that you forgive everybody, you forgive yourself, and you love everything. It is so simple, it's incredible. And the fact that you're actually just saying it as a mantra, the Ho'oponopono mantra, without even, once you know what it means, that doesn't permeate your mind anymore because all your mind is saying is you forgive and love everything. And that's perfect because that's where we need to kind of be at. Because haven't we all in our human form done something that we actually, if we got a choice and could read and play that out again, wouldn't we have done something different? Wouldn't we have been kinder on some level, whether that's to ourselves or others or whatever? We would have done things to a different level of kindness than we did at the time.
I do. I absolutely. And thanks for reminding me about Ho'oponopono, because also, correct me if I'm wrong, but many in our greater community would locate the heart chakra of the planet to just around the Hawaiian Islands.
Yes.
And there's a reason why Ho'oponopono, spoken in that, it's their language, in that frequency and vibratory resonance. Just saying it makes my head tingle.
Yeah.
What you're doing is tapping in. Oh, I got chills all over. Because I'm just by saying it, I'm bringing up Hawaii and Hawaiian Islands, and the heart chakra took me to her. Took me to her heart. There are people among us on this planet who go to her heart regularly and are part of her expression as humans, that carry her energy, carry the Gaia's heart chakra energy and heal with it. It's really powerful.
Very much so. And and it's finding what works for us to get us to a different level of contentment, really. Something else like I'm very much an advocate of is breathing techniques. And to actually get mantras to go with breathing techniques, often put this on my website, on my different business pages, even just on my wall on Facebook, to just when you're breathing in, remember you're breathing in love. When you're breathing out, remember you're breathing out love, because you are love and everything is love. And that is like a comfort blanket. But it actually makes us stop and pay attention to our breathing. You know, like a simple circular breathing, just breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth, and just allowing that to just circle around. That whole love vibe, whatever's going on around you at that time, ceases to bother you.
And while you're at it, it makes me think of the fact that that simple circular breathing with the applied construct of love. And by the way, we use these words, forgiveness, love, omnipresence. These actually have measurable hertz values associated with them in quantum mechanical energy. Harvard, Stanford, many of our institutions around the planet have already measured the vibratory resonance of these words and their power on the human brain stem and energy system. But that circular breathing reminds me of the brain stem and the unconscious content that's stored there, that is our heritage, generational heritage, is very much stored in that brain stem. And the breathing is governed by the medulla oblongata, and the very primitive aspects that keep us breathing, that make the chest rise and fall. What you're doing is engaging that very primitive body. You're also affecting so this is the limbic system. Where's your brain? It's a simple one, right? I love how we're built to just show ourselves things, right? And so when we do that breathing, we have the ability to keep that limbic system, reptilian brain, we tend to call it in the consciousness world, keep the brain intact and calm. And I had a therapist recently point out, we were talking about, I'm a therapist, so we were talking about these things, that what she teaches children is, well, here's your brain, and when it's overstimulated, when this part of the limbic system, the reptilian brain, it's tucked in the middle of your brain, is overstimulated, trauma will do it, historical stuff will do it, current trauma, then when it's overstimulated, wisdom goes away. I love that. She says she tells them that this is an owl.
That's beautiful.
Wisdom flies away.
Yeah.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah, I like that. That's beautiful.
So
like the wisdom within that in such simplicity. But yeah, what some of the work I do when I work with my clients is with the medulla oblongata.
Yeah, that would make sense. It would make sense if you go to that very basic, because for the skin suit that you like to call it, the earth suit, this is really what we're talking about, is the tools that are within it. Sometimes I get very judgmental and I think, oh, what a bunch of primitive chock-a-block I'm dragging around. I get very irritated. And then I have to reverse into the miracle of being embodied.
Yeah, totally. So, have to see the beauty and wonder within everything, even if it looks horrific on the outside. It will be a for that.
Well,
what is it teaching us?
Right.
Passion, more love.
And you don't have to talk about, there is no construct of omnipresence once you get to the upper climes of a fourth dimension and beyond, because you don't have to, there's no contrast to otherwise. So, so this is just especially for us in this human form that we're in now, in this resonance. Empathy. You mentioned empathy, the power of empathy from the omnipresent viewpoint. How does empathy serve to lift that up?
Again, it is just, even if we don't necessarily understand something, we can understand and the range of emotions that someone is having because of something. And that is just basically empathy. So it's just being able to go, okay, we can see that you're hurting. We can see that that is upsetting you, whatever level it's doing, from deep, sadness through to rage. We can see what is triggering the person. And to be able to just go, we understand how you're triggered in that way, and we accept that that is where you need to be at the moment, is all that we can ever give anybody. And in a way, it's just another level of grace that we can give people.
And grace is
We've
another.
all had the, oh my God, I've just been cut up in the car. And it moments, because we're human. We have these tests, but to just think, oh, right, that's just another version of me in a rush. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You literally, that energy comes on you, you acknowledge it, and you just let it carry on going. Because you haven't held on to it.
Right. And I want to remind you that you'll notice that a lot of the messaging coming through your oracles, coming through your channelers, coming through your, look at any of this give a gab Facebook tribe that's out there. Thank God for all of them. But what you're going to find is they're returning more and more, less and less to the recipes of you do this for that long and ABC through 10, and they're returning to self-love, self-healing, self-forgiving, self-empathy. Because in the Omnipresence story, I am you as I forgive me, forgiving myself. I find myself these days saying more to my husband, I'll say, I'm really forgiving myself for that. I'm using that language, and I'm using it even at work, and we'll get to that in a minute. So how about loving with no condition? How about just, as you said, love?
Yeah.
Applying love as you would a balm.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely, totally. Because this is what we just need to see, don't we? We need to see the bigger picture. As you kind of work through everything you're working through as an individual, you get to see a bigger and bigger picture every day. And once you get to a certain point, you can see that everything is perfectly balanced. There's no imbalance in everything. For every plus, there's a negative. For every negative, there's a positive. It's the way it is. And it's always been that, to be able to teach about the balance that we need to have within as well as without.
So now for the final component about applying to real life functioning. Most of the humans, including myself, and including you at different points in your, adult life, we have jobs. Part of being here is earning money out in the world. Some of us, working organizationally, working, in some way we are employed or some other, and we have to engage with others, co-workers, people in very different places than where we are, except in the Omnipresence story, we're where they are too.
Of course.
So, as one who recently added in a large-scale project with others, whereas I had my tribe much smaller as a teacher and only doing certain aspects, very controlled exposure. And that's ended for a while, and now I'm doing a much larger exposure to that what feels other. What would you say would be sort of the top 2 or 3 keys to keep in mind as we go about our professional lives? Because so many of us come to this conversation having that.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because it's like some of the situations that we find ourselves within the working platform, again, can be trying, to say the very least, let alone demands, schedule, targets, because everything here is mathematically inclined. So therefore, everything has a desired end result, even if that desired end result is impossible with the resources being given to people to be able to achieve it. So of course that can, well, as we all know, lead to all sorts of entertainment within the environment. But the only thing that we can do as individuals within that situation is to keep ourselves as centered and balanced as we can do. Because the more centered and balanced we are, the more that can help to get the people around us to be in that vibe too.
Mm-hmm.
You think of how the grids and energies work on this planet. If you're holding an integrity field, that integrity field is not just in your physical, it's actually within the auric field. Now, individual auric fields, an average one is deemed to be 24 feet across. So that's, let's have a look, 8 meters. Have to do. I'm still in feet and inches, but yeah, meters happen. Places do they not as part of the separation game, just so we can't even add up together. So that gives you an idea of how far from the body. I mean, that's not across, that is just from the body to the outside.
Yeah.
Holding like a 16-meter, 48-foot aura, if you imagine this all around you is you. So if you're in the workplace, how many people do you have within your aura?
Tremendous groups.
This is why we can trigger each other more in that sort of situation when we're in a collective together, because everybody's auras are interacting and spinning this all around without any other communication going on between us. We don't even have to talk to each other. We know that the person over there is crackling today because we can feel it from here because the auras have merged. So by keeping our own integrity and our own inner space just in a nice, relaxed, chilled, it can all wash over me mode, allows that slightly ripple out and start to have that calming effect on everything around us.
Well, and now you put
Huge.
it is huge, and now you put your finger on it. Something that and I think I've mentioned this before, there is a bias in our expanded community that will suggest don't participate there. Why would you go bring that to you to participate there?
Yeah.
Because we're creating that. We brought that to us.
Yeah.
And when I think about myself and what I brought to me, I also know I'm a being, first and foremost, I only came to serve. So if my job, really my only real job, is to do as you just described,
Just holding space.
then I'm just an agent doing that. I've noticed that when I'm in that place, more often than not, I am. And then I lose it for like a whole week at a time sometimes. But more on whole, increasingly, and I'll get better and better at it in this new body of work in this new project. That I manifest the results.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit weird to see the experiment out there because I know who I was. I know who I am in our immediate, in my more preferred group.
Yeah.
But finding who I am and how the dimensional, how the results work, I'm shocked sometimes. I will have the thought, boy, I need to connect with a person from X agency in that body of work. I need to find a way to connect, or I need to make sure they know who I am or how to reach me or us. Next thing I know, I'm in the elevator with them. That happened this week. The other thing that I found really shocking for you guys watching the YouTube and listening, Satara too, I've been shocked by the level of sophistication among the populace. Okay, and I'm dealing with folks from very little education, sometimes formal education, beyond high school or early college, through people who have, are physicians. And I deal with a real range in this work, and that's new for me to have such a range at my fingertips all the time from different parts of the work I do. And the level of sophistication that just the word mindfulness that became ubiquitous in the United States, perhaps in Europe,
Mhm.
but certainly here in the US, it has created a sea change that I say 10 years ago did not see the last time I worked so big.
Mhm.
Um, it just didn't exist at all. And so I'm really impressed by what I will bump into and the language people are using.
Yeah, it's rubbing off.
Right. And it's really, really, really beautiful. Well, I feel that we have done a beautiful service to the conversation. Is there anything that you could, well, just sort of wrap us up and take us home on the conversation, and then I'll close the show, Satara.
Yeah, I'm good with that. One thing I did want to just touch on very briefly before we were going is that there's more talk about being in your sovereignty, for being
Okay.
sovereign being. Again, it's a little bit separation-ish kind of do that because everything is sovereign, but really what people are talking about is being able
Able
to
to be
be being able to be in control of your emotions, thoughts, reactions, to not be reactive but be proactive in what you're doing. And that is really all about different levels and layers of the fact that we are just one. And it is just different acceptance levels and vibrations and energies that we can help smooth that down to allow everything around us to also smooth down. So it's like we're all becoming spheres again and just getting rid of those pointed edges that we've kind of had handed to us in this reality, knowing Gaia is called the cube outside of planet anyhow, because it was deemed to be a bit of a Pandora's box down here for the great experiment.
So, what was called the cube?
This planet,
I love that.
there we go, we live in a Rubik's Cube.
Very interesting about that as we head to the end of this conversation, and you mentioned the cube. One of my energy teachers, and I've had two quite notable since I was maybe in my early 20s. And they are still in my life very lightly at this point. I would only turn to them under very specific conditions. So these days it's not so much. But um, one of them said to me many years ago, he said, Amber, he said, at this particular phase of life that I'm in now, he said, you will discover your Pandora's box. And when the lid comes off, the way you will go. And he was absolutely right. He
Very
said,
much so. I actually have a very nice watercolor in my hall, which is from the artist Arthur Rackham, who was like late 1800s, early 1900s, and it is called Pandora's Box. And there is this very nymph-like naked girl taking the lid off this box, and all of this stuff is coming out. And I saw that and I was like, yes, that is my life. That was about 30 years ago. So I had to have this to go, yeah, all of that crap coming out of that box. Yeah, that's mine.
by way of remembrance of who your hosts are as we wrap up this show, because I think that's a very beautiful point Satara just made. Satara Jules Lightbringer is an individual who has been her awakened self since her girlhood, pretty much to the extent that she is today. I, on the other hand, a very empathic, awake child, but nowhere near as aware and integrated until the 2012 trigger, and then the 2016 Going Galactic experience. So we represent two models of humans on the planet today. Mine is a much more common experience, but even common means a very small percentage. but growing. Satara represents an even smaller percentage of those since childhood. But you do find us and find them out and around too. But very nice to spend this time with you all. This is our Esoterics Today with Satara and Amber. This is how we do it. Please share us. We are on YouTube. We are on SoundCloud, our podcast. If we can be of any support to you, do let us know. You can find our information on those places as well. Wishing you very well for another month. We will be back with another good conversation. And as we head into December this year, that will be our 1 year anniversary of shows. We hope that we've added some interest, some meaning, or at least a nice place to stop and hear two women talking about esoteric content, and that it has some meaning and support for you. With much love, we're going to sign off here. Good to see you, Satara. Much love, honey.
And you, it's been great to just, hook up and do another show. So we will speak to you again in November. Much love, everybody. Bye.